Dr. Tritsadi, Mr. Konuma, Mr. Holden, distinguished delegates to this conference. Thank you, Mr. Konuma, for laying out the broad outline for this conference, and thank you, Mr. Holden, for saying what you said, because broadly I think you have identified all the key issues that we need to discuss in this conference. But coming from a different perspective and a context, the problems of India and the solutions that India is looking for is slightly different from a large farm holding model. To reach there, and probably because of my association with FAO when I was Secretary Food and Secretary Agriculture, and having worked on some of the larger policy issues in what could be called an era of change within FAO, let me go back to the 5 strategic objectives that FAO has put in place. I want to repeat this for the sake of putting this discussion in context. These 5 are simple sentences, but very complex in its implementation. Help eliminate hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition. Make agriculture, forestry, and fisheries more productive and sustainable. Reduce rural poverty. Enable inclusive and efficient agricultural and food systems, and increase resilience of livelihoods to disasters. To me, these are extremely important, and I think whatever we discuss with dairying have to be in the context of these 5 large strategic objectives. This also means that we need a better understanding and appreciation of the interdependence between livelihood issues of small farmers and the challenges of climate change and issues of sustainable development. Now, any technologically perfect solution which ignores livelihood issues would probably be inequitable and therefore may not find wider acceptance in large parts of the world. We all know that domestic animals have been an integral part of human existence throughout the world and played a key role in the way in which agriculture developed and societies developed. Technology has changed much of it, but still in most parts of the world, the quality of human life and nutrition, particularly in rural areas, is inextricably linked to the quality of livestock products that is produced, and which in turn is significantly influenced by the genetic potential and the nature of the raw materials that is fed to the animal. Now, there are many concerns and challenges that the livestock sector globally, and Asian livestock in particular, have to cope with, especially with regard to increasing and sustaining productivity and ensuring that food and nutrition security is available in the countries. In most developing countries, and particularly in India, the aspirations of the people, and therefore the policies of most democratically elected governments, are focused on eradication of hunger and malnutrition, which still remains a global challenge, elimination of poverty, while ensuring inclusive economic and social progress for all, and sustainable management and utilization of natural resources. This is possible only by making agriculture, and Mr. Konuma, you rightly alluded to the increasing demand for food, forestry and fisheries more productive, reducing wastage of natural resources, and enabling inclusive and efficient agricultural systems. And we've also seen in recent times that disasters like droughts affect the poor disproportionately in comparison to many other people. And our own studies within the country have shown that livestock often remains their only hope in such situations. And smallholder farmers, therefore, have the best insurance against starvation and acute malnutrition in adverse climatic conditions. And it's also important, while we try and address hunger and malnutrition, that we understand the value and profitability of dairying to small farmers. But this has, of course, challenges from technology, logistics, and more importantly, management. But these are not insurmountable, and as the cooperative dairying experience in India has shown. Therefore, whenever we talk about dairying in the context of poverty, hunger, and malnutrition, we need to understand the sensitivities of the poor, the limitations of their resources, the legal framework, which is extremely important with reference to the use of common lands for grazing cattle, and the immense possibilities of technology adaptation and innovation. This requires, therefore, a holistic approach which takes into consideration factors which would impact land, water, and climate. And feeding systems can therefore become irrelevant if the factors that adversely affect agriculture production and availability of water are not addressed, as they have a direct impact on the productivity of livestock on a sustainable basis. In India, feeding systems are based normally on byproducts of cereal crops. Grains are not normally used for ruminant feeding. This type of a feeding system is efficient and sustainable, as livestock production systems is not in direct competition with human beings, especially for grains. The balance between food, feed, and fiber in agriculture is extremely important. It got completely messed up in 2008, many of us would recall, when fuel got added to the 3 Fs that I mentioned already. While we target growth in milk production, we need to be aware of also the limitations of our resources. The availability of feed and fodder and water could become the major limiting factors. Therefore, any strategy that we plan should significantly increase the efficiency of their utilization. I think Mr. Holden made that point exceptionally well in his presentation. Therefore, when we anchor such an approach in scientific knowledge, let's also adapt them to local systems which are acceptable to people. Given the climate change issues, water could become the major limiting factor in our approach to development. Therefore, managing water is going to be critical to many parts of the world. Now, coming to the Indian situation, it's a well-documented story. But to be brief, we increased our production of milk from 22 million tons in 1970 to 66.2 in 96 and to 132 in 2014. It could even be 138 when we get the final figures. We have a large number of cooperative dairy federations, milk unions, more than 150,000 village dairy cooperative societies, and more than 15 million milk producer members who own these cooperatives. But more importantly, 29% of these are women. And in fact, even though we think it's a good number, we are not happy with it. We would like to see that move up considerably forward in the next 3, 4, 5 years. We have been increasing our milk production at about 5 million tons per annum, which we think is a good achievement given the fact that in a tropical country, collection, storage, and processing of milk remains a huge challenge. But more importantly, it's a subsidiary activity for our people, and therefore it's more a means of livelihood. And our own effort with the cooperative model has actually increased milk production, but more importantly, provided a very sustainable, effective means of social and economic empowerment to our women. And this, we feel, is an important element in the economic transformation that we are attempting. We also understand and we appreciate the fact that feed resources would probably not increase at all in the years to come, and therefore efficiency of these resources is going to be the biggest challenge that we may need to face. And we need to develop, even within India, climate and geography appropriate models of feeding our cattle in the times to come. It also needs to be seen that feed, which accounts for 70% of total cost of milk production in the country, needs to be probably much more cost effective in terms of increasing nutritive value and also efficiency in milk production. Therefore, the challenge is not only about finding more efficient feed, but also in reducing the cost. NDDB, on its part, has been engaged in the development and use of strategic feed supplements for improving milk production and reproduction efficiency, so that milk production and productive life of dairy animals can be increased with the available feed resources. These include urea molasses mineral block lick, bypass protein supplements, bypass fat supplements, region-specific mineral mixtures, etc. Balancing the ration with available feed resources locally available to the farmers and an area-specific mineral mixture can significantly increase the net daily income of milk producers by either increase in milk production or reduction in cost of feed. The balanced ration also helps in reducing the occurrence of several metabolic disasters. Preliminary data, we are still not sure about putting this out in the open, but an indicative data that we have developed suggests that feeding a balanced ration leads to an increase in daily net income of $0.50 per animal through reduction in the cost of feed and increase in the production of milk. Now this, therefore, is definitely a positive signal which we need to build on, and maybe we need more data to substantiate significantly what we are saying across regions. The importance of feeding calves a ration that lead to achieve optimum gain in body weight is also an important element. So many of our cooperatives have now started making calf starters and making it available to the farmers. It is well stated and understood that we cannot look at feeding systems alone without addressing the genetic quality of animals that are being fed, particularly in the Indian context. So our National Dairy Development Plan, a World Bank funded project of $255 million, would focus on increase of productivity of milch animals through improved breeding, improved ration balancing, and better conversion efficiency. And of course, better marketing and linkage to the markets. But one needs to be concerned about climate variability in the context of its impact on agriculture and also its impact on feed. Therefore, we believe strongly that some of the indigenous breeds needs improvement and promotion in the context of climate variability. I don't want to use the word climate change because it's much more complex in its coverage. Therefore, we are identifying a couple of indigenous breeds which we feel have much better potential to withstand the variabilities of climate and also produce better in adverse climatic conditions. In our ration balancing program, which we have undertaken under the National Dairy Plan, we are employing about 40,000 local resource persons. This will be a program for the next 6 years to be trained in different aspects of animal feeding, and this is being linked to an online software where each animal data would be recorded and a central server would send out the advisory to the local person who would then translate that into a practical advice to the farmers. Needless to mention, we are also conscious of the need to reduce the contribution of dairy animals in India to greenhouse gases, which again you alluded to as an issue which we need to address probably at a collective level. We have realized that animals fed an unbalanced ration is one of the reasons why this happens. And again, preliminary data suggests that balanced ration to an animal can reduce methane emissions by 12 to 15%, which is again not out there in the public domain, but a very rough indication. And therefore, we feel that breeding programs and ration balancing program together could make a significant impact on this issue. In fact, all our programs in NDDB are aimed at improving productivity, profitability, sustainability, and much more on focused on improving livelihoods of smallholder dairy farmers, who really is the backbone of what has happened in dairying so far in India. To conclude, if we were to collectively address the challenges of increasing productivity to meet rapidly growing demand for nutrition, it's probably not enough to have ideas, technology, large projects and budget allocations. I think we need a carefully thought out, science-based, sustainable, and locally relevant approach to breeding, feeding, and animal health and marketing is necessary. And this, one could say, a common but differentiated approach to various parts of Asia is the need of the hour. And let me also say that the problems that confront Asia, and particularly countries like India, are different from the problems faced by many other parts of the world. Therefore, a one-size-fits-all approach and a solution may not work in this region. And it's extremely important, therefore, that this idea of a Dairy Asia be taken forward to meet, to exchange knowledge, information, which is available in plenty in this room and outside within many parts of Asia, to bring out policies, programs, and technology options that are relevant to each of our respective countries. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak in this forum, and I hope that this Dairy Asia would go forward in its attempt not only to increase production of milk, which is required by a large number of people in this part of the world, but in also finding solutions to problems which confront us today and may confront us tomorrow as well. Thank you very much.